My name is Olivia Kelly. I'm hoping I'm remembering everything that you asked us to say, but I graduated this past May, so I'm a year of 21 graduate. I'm currently at Johns Hopkins University, and I am studying communications, but specifically political communication and public and media relations.
Don Henry, class of 1983, got my degree in psychology. Pronouns are he, him, and his. Had thought long and hard about pursuing a master's and a PhD in clinical psychology, but headed off in the business direction instead. Recently, though, I retired, and largely because of the impact I think that COVID has had on the country and mental health and so on and so forth, I decided to pursue this Oglethorpe passion and entered Mercer University's master's program in clinical mental health counseling. This is a little bit of a dream come true for me because it's something that I always looked back on and wondered, man, should I have done that? And I would say that one of the things that Oglethorpe really instilled in me was a commitment to lifelong learning. And so with that, really anything is possible, just like this. So happy to be in Mercer's program and happy to be here today with you.
Hi, my name is Maya. I graduated class of 2020. I majored in chemistry and minored in biology and Spanish. I am currently at Emory University at the Rollins School of Public Health, studying with my concentration being health management and policy on the health management track.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Martis. I graduated Oglethorpe with a degree in theater. And currently I am at Boston College in the Lynch School of Education, and I'm studying higher education with a concentration in administration.
And I'll go. Hi, my name is Sarah Rodgers. I knew Ben when he was here. I should use she, her pronouns. And I graduated back in 2018, excuse me, with a major in English and a minor in communications. And then I went on to do a master's in library and information science at Valdosta State University. And I completed that this past May, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Wonderful. So I'll start with you, Ben. What informed your choice of Boston College? You went from 1,500 to 14K.
So it was a myriad of things. While deciding to go to grad school, I was thinking what I wanted to do, if I wanted to continue in theater or change career paths. And I really enjoyed my time even working at Oglethorpe and being part of higher education. So I decided to pursue higher education. And in looking at programs that were strong higher education programs, Boston College was one of them. And because I'm an international student, I wasn't tied to like being in Georgia or staying in Georgia or staying in Atlanta. So I decided, I can branch out and look at other possibilities. And Boston College was one of them. And they have a strong program, and they offer a lot of things that I was very interested in. And I've mostly went to smaller schools, Oglethorpe, of course, being the smallest. Before that, the school that I went to was about 6,600 students. So I kind of wanted that experience to go like a little bit bigger, but I didn't want to go to like 140,000 people or something like that. I know maybe that's not a possibility, but like I decided that I wanted to go bigger, but not too big. So I think Boston College was right there in that niche, and being in Boston for higher education is one of the best choices I think that I can make. Seeing that the location as well for so many different higher education institutions out here in Boston or in Massachusetts in general. So that's what's one of the strongest choices was location.
I saw a lot of head shaking during that response. So did others want to jump in on what informed you in your search?
I know for me, Emory is kind of like in our backyard, but I looked at a lot of different places. Really what informed was just what I was looking for in a graduate school program. And I think that that's very important, is that you find a program that matches your interests, because a lot of programs offer, you know, the same degrees, but they have different nuances within them. With Emory being close to the CDC and having a lot of the classes that I was willing to take, it was just a no-brainer for me to decide to go there among the other schools I got accepted to. So yeah, biggest advice is look at the catalogs for the classes. They're usually available online, and it can really help solidify a decision.
Yeah, my approach was very similar to Maya's in terms of wanting to find something that was in Atlanta. And what I really wanted to do was kind of replicate the Oglethorpe experience. I really enjoyed being a student at Oglethorpe. You know, the physical nature of being in class and, you know, able to have discussions with your fellow students, fellow classmates, and the professor and things like that. So my search process really revolved around trying to repeat that. There were a number of online opportunities that I could have pursued, but again, I wanted the Oglethorpe experience, and I think Mercer came the closest to delivering that.
Now, Sarah, you stayed in state. What made you choose Valdosta for your grad degree?
That's a great question. And I think it kind of relates to Maya's answer about like finding what's in your field and what you like to do. Because there's not many library and information science like programs in the United States. Valdosta State happens to be the only one that's in Georgia. So Emory used to have a program and Clark Atlanta used to have a program, but they eventually just got whittled down to Valdosta. Honestly, affordability was one of the major factors there. It happens to be one of the most affordable programs that you can do. And then on top of that, it was also really nice to be able to, like, if I wanted to visit campus, know that it would be a 2.5, 3 hour drive-ish, depending on what I needed. And that came in handy when it came to like getting certain paperwork and stuff like that too. So overall, I just felt like it would be the best choice for me. And also, like, even though it was affordable, I didn't sacrifice like program rigorousness or anything like that. It was still a really good experience.
I think that's a great point that you made about, even though the program was close, you didn't sacrifice rigor or program quality. So I think that's very important. So anyone else want to jump in on what informed you in your search?
Yeah, so I also like understand Maya's perspective of finding a program that really focuses on that certain thing that you're really passionate about. And so I made a decision to go to Oglethorpe because I wanted to be near politics. So it seemed to be the smart move to look in DC, in the DC area, for another place to go for politics. And Johns Hopkins just happened to have the perfect program for that was really specialized in political communication. So I made that jump to Johns Hopkins for the location and the fact that the professors were so experienced in that field.
So what helped you decide on pursuing graduate school? Like, did you know as you know, when you were first year students that I know I'm going to grad school? If you didn't know first year, when did you know?
I worked in the museum for a little bit one summer, and an older patron came up to me and she was like, "Where are you going to grad school?" I had to be in like sophomore or junior year. She's like, "Where are you going?" Because it's an absolute must nowadays. Basically, her whole thesis was like, your undergraduate education is not going to get you as far as it used to. That was her whole thing. Like, I guess that varies based on the person and the background and stuff, but that was her whole point. And my response was kind of like, well, you going to pay for my education? But, like, eventually when I figured out what I wanted to do. It just so happens that in my field, if you really want to elevate your position and your pay, you absolutely have to get that master's. Like it ends up kind of gatekeeping and preventing you from being able to advance in the field simply because of that diploma. So after I realized that I wanted to be a librarian, it just became a thing.
Yeah, for me, it was, I can't even put it into words like right now, but it was a very different set of events, because I came into the United States, decided, oh, I'm gonna go and become an actor. And as I progressed through college, and I experienced so many different things that I didn't experience before, that higher education or the college experience provides, things that don't exist in the education system in Curacao, where I come from. Um, I then had a whole different view about things that I could do, specifically for if I decide to go back, and especially if I decide to stay. And when the pandemic hit, it was a matter of what are your choices now, because for me, I had like 1 year to work, and I had to figure out what is going to happen after this year. Am I going to go back? Am I going to stay? And if I stay, what am I going to decide to do? And at that point, looking back at like, oh, I have good grades. I can do a master's program. It was a matter of figuring out what program I want to do and what suits me best. And it took a lot of introspection to decide, you know what, even though I came to become an actor, I'm gonna switch over because I feel passionate about this. I feel like I want to do this. And finding a program that was like affordable, but didn't sacrifice that quality, was a good the step to go to. And yeah, Boston College offered that, so I decided, hey, I think I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go full in for it.
Yeah, for my part, I kind of figured I would take some additional classes. I recognized that when I graduated from Oglethorpe, my time in the classroom probably wasn't done. I didn't necessarily think that I was going to get a master's degree. I more envisioned taking classes for pleasure and probably auditing them so I could avoid test preparation and writing papers and things like that. I had thought long and hard about literature, because when I was at Oglethorpe, I had some really good lit professors that had a strong influence on me. And in fact, back in 2014, I did audit a lit class from Dr. Terry, and that just reinforced, my desire to probably do some further study there. But as I kind of gave away in the introduction, I think largely because of COVID and seeing a lot of, mental health issues arising and not being adequately addressed, I decided to get serious and pursue the master's in mental health counseling. And that means, yes, I do have to take tests and write papers, but that's okay.
So grad school's definitely a big investment. Did you work to fund this? Are you working to fund this degree? And did the school provide resources, assistantships, scholarships, or did you identify other ways to fund your, this portion of your career journey? And what advice do you have for those students still trying to figure this part out?
I can start with this one. I will say that the the process of funding your graduate degree to me was a little bit easier than the process of funding undergraduate education. And I think one of the reasons why that is because they look at you as a full adult when you go into graduate school, rather than looking at your parents' income. So I didn't have to have a lot of information when I applied through FAFSA for graduate school. So mostly the government subsidizes my education. I did get a scholarship from Emory, and they also provide work study and things of that nature. But I did take out loans, but it was a much easier process. And the loans are like I think they call it Graduate Plus loan to go to graduate school. And that was a lot easier, to receive. I don't want to say that they're handing out free money, because it's not free money. Like, you will have to pay it back, but on the side to like help subsidize things, because I took out the full amount for whatever they go to school, and then I just said whatever I don't use, I'll just return at the end, or take it to pay down a lump sum off the loan. But to subsidize, I did get work study at Emory, so I work as a graduate clinical research assistant in clinical trials, and then I also have my own like tutoring business. My thing for people in graduate school is to just, if you're going to work, make sure that's flexible, because there's so many opportunities to take advantage of in graduate school in terms of just networking and connections. That's such a big part, especially if you're wanting to enter the workforce afterwards. And so I wouldn't, if possible, choose a job that's going to be really, really demanding, especially if you insist on being a full-time student and you're trying to get your footing, in the door. Just to have time to really network with your professors, network with the alumni, and the people that are coming in and throughout the program.
So both Don talked about mental health and you talked about time. What are the biggest challenges of being a graduate student? And also, what do you find as the highlights?
I worked full time my entire time that I was in grad school. So I would go to work and then I would come home and do homework. And it was all library stuff. So I never quite felt like, even on vacation, you have homework in the back of your mind. For 2 years, I basically did not feel that I was off at any point. Like, I think about like my coworkers going home and watching TV and being like, must be nice, So that was my experience in that regard.
So what was there a highlight takeaway that you had from grad school?
You mean in regards to like mental, like?
No, just something, just something joyful. I know working while in grad school can be challenging. Did you have like, oh, but I had a fun moment?
So my grad program was all online, but it was very much you're going to be online, but you're also going to be running across Georgia to different libraries to get hands-on experience and speak to other librarians and engage in programming and stuff. So it was really like cool to be able to say, hey, I'm an MLIS student, and see how many doors opened for me that way, and to be able to engage with different people and make those connections. Because now that I've graduated, I'm like, I am with one of y'all, but it was really nice to be able to do that and see how welcoming this community could be. I'd say that was a highlight. And then also, like, even though I worked and that was stressful, it was very cool to be able to connect my studies with the work that I was actually doing and try and implement stuff that I was learning about. So those would be some highlights. It wasn't all terrible.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go back to the previous question too. Like, for me, I have an assistantship. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me that made it like grad school a possibility, that having the opportunity to be able to get my studies paid for by the university that I'm attending, rather than like trying to find all the other ways to pay for it, because I don't qualify for federal like anything. So having the opportunity to have an assistantship was very big for me. And because of that, the assistantship consists of working for the college. I am working in the Career Center for Boston College. And that is part of my assistantship. I'm still here in the Career Center. But it's the highlight for me of being here right now is that I'm working with a group of graduate assistants as well. They all have assistantships. We are living through the same things, and they're a year ahead in the program. So having that community of like-minded people who are experiencing the same type of life that you're experiencing, and knowing that after this, you will be pursuing maybe the same type of jobs in the same areas, and knowing that you have these connections that you can that you're forging now that can be beneficial in the future as well. I think that's one of the biggest things so far. Maybe I'll go on to hate it later, but right now, that's one of the biggest benefits right now, is that knowing that I'm in a place where I'm learning and I'm having the chance to put hands-on experience, and having a community around me that will stay with me probably throughout the years.
So talk about how students might prepare for those grad school applications, because that can be a process.
One thing
I think you go, girl, you got it.
I was going to say that one thing that I think really stood out in my experience was having those extracurricular experiences outside of the classroom. And so I did a really unique thing. I joined the Air Force Reserve while I was still at Oglethorpe, and that every single time that was like brought up, it was like a shocker to people, which I'm not encouraging everyone to do that because that's like a huge commitment. But I think that like putting yourself out there and doing things that are outside of the classroom show that you have that extra commitment to the field that you're interested in, and that you have the ability to utilize time management. So I think that's really important.
Maya, were you gonna?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Olivia, and I would also add that just kind of getting like a mindset of what you need to have beforehand, and preparing yourself a timeline to get it. Just because a lot of graduate programs for my MPH that I applied to, you needed like letters of recommendation. Some of them you applied through the portal called SOFA for MPH, but then other schools wanted like a one-off application that you didn't use the portal for. So just having that knowledge ahead of time, making sure you contact your professors or professional network if you want letters of recommendation ahead of time. And then I would also say use career services to help with any personal statements, because they helped with mine a lot. It was like night and day from what I started with. And I really think that the personal statement has a very strong, what is it called? Like it's a strong indicator to help you get into grad school. It's going to show your passion, you know, talk about who you are, what you do, why you want to go in, and what you want to go into. So yeah.
Yeah, for my part, it felt like a full-time job for about 4 to 6 weeks, getting through the application process, and not that I'm trying to besmirch my my newer alma mater. Following up with them was almost a daily event. I guess when you're dealing outside of a more intimate school like Oglethorpe and you're starting to deal with a bureaucracy, things magically get lost. And so having to submit and resubmit documents and following up to make sure that they've received it was kind of part of my daily or weekly diet. So I would say use your organizational skills and your administrative skills so that you can get through it successfully and, you know, with the least hassle possible.
Yeah, Don makes a great point, especially coming from a intimate community like OU and going to wherever you might be going. Like things don't work the same as they work at OU. So keeping that in mind, that going to a new institution and knowing the deadlines. Some institutions, you know, you filled out your application, but they have different deadlines, and programs only start every other year or whatever. So whatever program that you're interested in, especially maybe as a rising junior, that you know when that program starts and what those program deadlines are. So going back to Don and say maybe challenge. Oh, Ben, I saw you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes. So yeah, just to reiterate some things, it's like forge your relationships in undergrad. That's, to me, that's one of the strongest things. I had people that I really connected with at Oglethorpe that were staff members that really helped out in that process to like review my personal statement and see if I'm to send recommendation letters, all of those stuff, like forge those relationships that you're creating at Oglethorpe with your teachers, with your professors, with your staff members, the people that you interact with. Oglethorpe is so small, you interact with so many people daily, you create so many relationships. Make sure that you're using those relationships, not abusing, but definitely using. And I know people at Oglethorpe are definitely willing to help to create that, to help you out with those with your personal statements and making sure that you have a strong recommendation letter as well.
Thank you. And as Ben was mentioning, that's something for students to continue throughout. When you're building those relationships, it's important because your advisor can write a glowing, they know the work that you've done. They know how hard you have worked. So your advisor, both in undergrad and as you go through your graduate studies, can be a great source for a recommendation letter as you're going out into the workforce.
And let me just recommend, stay in touch with your advisor. So one of my 2 letters of recommendation was from my psychology professor and advisor back from the 1980s. And what made this easy for me was we stayed in touch, over the past 40 years. So it wasn't like I had to cold call him and say, hey, remember me? I really need a favor now. So, stay in touch with your advisor, stay in touch with your classmates, because you never know when you're going to need them or when you can be of service to them. And, the other point I would make, going back to the process of getting admitted, the best way I can illustrate this is when I was an undergrad or entering Oglethorpe as an undergrad, I felt like the admissions department really was trying to pull me into the university. They were helping me get in. In the graduate program, I felt like I was having to push to get in. Not that they didn't want me, or at least I hope that's not the case. But again, it's dealing with, kind of a master's level mindset and a bureaucracy, and things aren't always going to go your way. So it was definitely more of a push to get in as opposed to the comfortable pull that you feel when you're at Oglethorpe.
Absolutely. Like I remember talking to an administrator for Valdosta State. I don't know who, I can't remember what her face looked like, but I was like, oh, I'm excited to start your program. She was like, if you get in. And I'm like, if I get in, like this negativity. Oh my goodness. Like, okay. But I have to leave in a minute, but I also wanted to highlight again, like the whole stay connected to your advisors, your connections that you've made during undergrad. That's not just important for getting into grad school, but like also for scholarships and stuff. 100% you absolutely need them to be on your side and to be able to speak to what you can do. I won 3 scholarships, and I firmly believe that it's because of the very strong recommendation letters that I was able to get from people who knew my work. But thank you so much for having me, and see you guys later.
So absolutely, to just piggyback on what everyone has said, I always tell students every connection is a possibility. So from recommendations to your classmates, that's one thing, alumni will say, I wish I had connected, more with my classmates. And especially difficult sometimes in graduate school. And Don, you might be able to attest to this as sort of, a mature graduate school, and you've got stuff, you're coming and going, you're coming and going, there's so many things going, and you're so focused on your studies. Sometimes it's hard to connect, but making those connections is important, especially once you're out into the job search and you're out there and you're like, hey, remember me from class. So definitely want to make sure you're making those connections. So we have a question in the Q&A, And I think, Maya, you might be able to answer this. What entrance exams are required for an MPH program?
If it's a standalone MPH program, the only one that's required right now should be the GRE. I would definitely double check because I feel like there's new entrance exams popping up every year for certain programs. So definitely check on their website. But it's usually the GRE will get you in.
So I want to ask those grads, those 2020 grads, as a 2020 grad, did your post-grad plans change? Or were you already sort of on course?
Yeah, definitely, 100%, 1,000%. It changed drastically. I knew coming in that, like, if I decided that I wanted to go to grad school, that I wanted to do higher education, but I didn't know if I would actually do it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna definitely do this. I'm not gonna pursue this anymore. But once the pandemic hit and everything, you're sitting at home and you're, again, a lot of introspection. If I make this choice right now, what is it gonna mean for me? What is gonna happen for me after this? So yeah, things changed quickly. I was at Oglethorpe for a period of time, just working there. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that being at Oglethorpe offered me during that time as well. But it was a lot of thinking. It was a lot of, like, deciding, oh, what's gonna come next if I don't go the route that I already thought maybe that I would go in. But yeah, definitely they changed.
Don, you were going to say something? Oh, go ahead, Maya.
Oh, sorry. I would say for me, I knew I was going to grad school, but I kind of switched at the last minute to go get my MPH rather than go to medical school. The pandemic definitely highlighted all that public health is going through in our health system. So I knew that I was making the right decision when March of 2020 hit. I was like, oh, okay, I think I did the right thing. But yeah, it was a knowledge I knew I was going to have to go to grad school. I didn't, after working in the lab, I was like, I don't think I'll be happy doing this forever. So I knew medical school or public health was going to be something that I was going to need to do.
So, Don, I'll ask you as a fellow mature grad student.
I'm trying to pass myself off as a member of the class of 2020. I don't think I'm doing a real good job.
So I'll ask you, as in the application process and in the walking, from working life to walking back onto a campus,
Yeah.
what are some of the challenges of, like, oh, so even now that we're in this virtual telecommuting space and all of that, what were some of the things that you were excited to learn, or you were like, oh man, what is this? Just some insight.
Well, yeah, let me answer the oh man, what is this question first. And that would have to do with the online student portal, which Mercer uses Canvas. And I think Oglethorpe may be adopting Canvas. Maybe you're using Oasis, I'm not sure. But that's the one thing that really threw me for a loop. In terms of basic student skills, I still remembered how to take notes. Believe it or not, most of my books are physical books, so I know how to highlight. I remember how to study for tests and write papers, but it was the online student portal that really, really threw me. And, part of it was just the uncertainty. Have I accessed all of my assignments, or is there another assignment that is buried in some folder or file in Canvas that I haven't even seen yet? And if I've done the assignment, have I submitted it properly? And that was a very real concern, because the first assignment I tried to submit, I don't know how I did it, but I wound up in the professor's syllabus file. I don't think the system would have let me override her syllabus, but I was very afraid of what would have happened if I had pushed enter. Now, the good news was I did end up finding the correct file and got it submitted on time, but I would say it was kind of the new technology for me. Even though I used technology a lot in my business, it was kind of like a new language, but like anything else, it's muscle memory. So once you've done it a couple of times, you know, you don't sweat it anymore. So the transition wasn't that significant. The huge benefit, though, was getting to be in a classroom of other like-minded students, and kind of the collegiality and collaboration that goes with that. And I have to say that I was asked to participate in a study group for one of my classes, and I was very honored that the chat line was named Don's Proteges. So that kind of made me feel like, you know what, I'm fitting in. It's working out.
That's wonderful. So does anyone else want to talk about their experience? Are you in a cohort? And I know that Ben, you mentioned you're sort of like-minded and connecting with classmates and the importance of that. Because I know for my graduate program, I'm still, one of my classmates is defending in 21 days. And so we're still connected and still talking and still supporting each other. Talk about that fellow student support.
Yeah, I think my program in itself, it's because we're studying higher education, because we're studying how to be supporters for other students as well, and how to be scholars. The idea of working together, of working as scholars and reviewing each other's work is very strong in the program. So I have one class where we're constantly having to be in scholar support groups where we talk to each other about what we read and how we approach the themes of the material for that week. So it's having that community of people to talk to, and then going beyond just having to talk about the material, you talk about your own frustrations about the material, about being in school, about having all of these things that you got to do and still having to do your assistantship and having a 20-hour assistantship that you got to do, going through all that work. And sometimes I would come in and I'm like, I'm really confused about everything that we read this week. And they were like, okay, great, because we are as well. So now I know that, like, oh, it's not just me, we're all going through the same struggle. And it really takes a load off your back to have that type of community, to be able to talk about your frustrations with your classmates, with your peers, with the students ahead of you in the class. So yeah, definitely 100%, 10 out of 10 recommend to create study groups, become Don's proteges. I think it's a very strong thing because the workload is different than undergraduate, the undergraduate program. So having to make that switch from like, oh, I used to have 7 classes and I did that fine, but now I have 3 classes and it's a lot of work. So it's it's having that support to know that, like, you're not alone. It's not hard just for you. It really takes a load off.
So what do you think might help students in that transition from this community of OU, where you're, wrapped in the OU, that, OU community, that bubble? What would help students going, as they're going beyond, like, again, Ben, you went from OU to Boston College, and Maya, you're at Emory, and Olivia, you're at Johns Hopkins. What would help students in that transition, or how can we help students in that transition? Or what helped you?
I think, oh, sorry. I think one of the things that really helped me, which I know is going to sound very weird, but social media, a lot of people who are in graduate programs utilize social media to communicate about just like what they're going through at their program, you know, different things to look out for within the industry. And then on top of that, like, because some classes are so big, like I found like, so Emory is still small, but it's bigger than Oglethorpe. And like, I didn't even realize I was going to school with some people until I looked at Instagram and was like, oh, you're at Emory in my program? Oh, me too. Like, you know, like, let's connect. So I definitely think, you know, social media is a great tool. And then also just getting out of your comfort zone sometimes outside of class, just introducing yourself and connecting, you know, with people who are on the, you know, just on the same track as you. I mean, you're in the same grad program. Like Ben said, you're going to be going through some of the same things. The workload is a little bit different. I feel like in, you know, in undergrad, I took Dr. Schmeichel's class. You know, she was reminding us all the time what we had to do, what's going on. But Dawn is completely right about Canvas, because that's what Emory uses. And you will have an assignment hiding in a folder somewhere. And like, the professor's not going to always remind you what's happening. So, you know, just having those friends also, you know, that between 5 people, usually someone will remember the due date on something or what's going on. So, you know, just finding the people that you connect with. I think I'm one of those type of people that believe you can find a community anywhere you are.
I think that's a great point. I love the word community, because I think going from a small school to a large school, or going from an undergrad program into a master's program, it's not going from good to bad or something like that. It's just different. And so I think wherever you are, to Maya's point, if you can find a community, you're going to feel like you belong. The other advice I would give is think about, okay, the industry or the profession that you're pursuing, and what industry groups are out there that, you know, maybe as an undergrad, it didn't make sense for you to join. I think in almost all cases, if you're getting into graduate studies, it does make sense for you to get involved in industry groups and network. And if you do that, you're just going to have a greater feeling or sense of belonging. So that would be my encouragement.
Thanks. So I want to ask, do you have any additional nuggets that you would like to share with our students?
One thing that I am really passionate about is to go to a graduate program that like you are genuinely in love with, and not something that you feel like needs to be a check mark or something to get you somewhere where you might not really want to be. For the longest time, I think Maya talked about it, how she wanted to go to medical school, but she ended up deciding on this program. I wanted to go to law school, but I wasn't like passionate. It was just something that I felt like I needed to do. And I hated the process of like trying to like figure out how to get there, because I didn't really want to go. But now that I'm here in this program, everything makes sense. So definitely following your heart, and not necessarily just a check mark list of what you think that you need to do to be successful.
Yeah, you're going to be under a certain amount of stress, because master's programs are, you know, pretty rigorous, and there's a lot of content that they throw at you and a lot of assignments and things like that. So definitely take care of yourself. This means eating right. I'm a big believer in doing some form of exercise on a regular basis so you can manage stress. And the one thing that is absolutely overlooked is sleep. Do everything you can to get a decent amount of sleep each night. I know sometimes that's more aspirational than realistic, but if you can pull that off, you're going to function much better. So take care of yourself.
Yeah, to kind of head on all of that, what Olivia is saying is definitely 100% true. Even, you know, finding that program that you're passionate about and going for it, but also that take your time. You don't have to go to graduate school right away. You know, you might feel that pressure of like, I don't know what I'm about to do. If you really don't know what you're gonna do, take your time, figure it out, be in that workforce. Having work experience only makes it better once you decide to apply to graduate school. Because it's like you're going to be part of a community of scholars, of thinkers, and having that extra experience to bring to whatever program you decide to go to always helps. So take your time. Don't feel the pressure of like, oh, I finished undergrad. Now I really got to go to grad school. Take your time, figure out what you want to do, find that passion, find that thing that you feel like is gonna be fulfilling for you. Um, know what you're good at, know what makes you happy before you decide to like really dive into that, and do not feel pressured at all to go to grad school right away. It's always gonna be there, um, and you will always have the chance to do it, but making sure that you're in the right program is the best thing to do for you. So I don't feel pressure at all.
I 100% agree with what's been stated. And I would also just like to add, I guess the best piece of advice that I got was for graduate school wise was just utilizing LinkedIn. Like there's so many, I never knew the power of LinkedIn, but being in public health, it's all about collaboration. It's all about reaching out, trying to get things done. And LinkedIn is definitely a big help, especially right now because I'm looking into healthcare consulting. So it's, what do you call it, like job application season right now. So in the midst of applying to jobs, you know, just using LinkedIn to see, oh, who's worked there? Oh, this person from Oglethorpe works there. This person from Emory works there, and being able to connect with them and, you know, send a quick message like, hey, can you tell me if you like your time here or anything like that? It can really, really help you out.
Yeah, one last thing for me. Definitely search hard, make calls to the institution that you're trying to apply to, especially if you're not getting the amount of scholarships or the amount of financial support that you need. Go into their website, search everywhere that you can, call, send emails. Definitely put pressure on everybody that you can get in contact with from that university. Once you already get accepted, if you feel like you're not there financially, because there are hidden things in there that people might not know because they didn't go to the school in as an undergrad. So definitely do as much as you can. Like Maya said, find people that probably graduated from that institution as well. If you decide to go to grad school, to talk to them about their experience, to talk to them about other ways that you can be part of that institution. And yeah, you always have the career center as well. Now I'm plugging because I work here now, so you always have the career center as well. So
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Ben. Career development is always here to help as a resource. That is part of the journey. What everyone has mentioned, it's so important to do your research. It's also important to know where you want to go, and we can help you with those assessments. And in that period, if you're waiting to, you know, go to grad school, it is very important to make the right choice, the right program. So that's so important and so key. So thank you for bringing that up. Well, I want to thank everyone on behalf of Career Development and the Office of Alumni Relations at Oglethorpe. Thank you so much for joining us for this grad panel. Students, be sure to continue to check Handshake for upcoming events. And all of our guests, please follow us on social media. We're at Oglethorpe Careers. And we're also on LinkedIn. I think it's Oglethorpe Career Development, to stay up to speed on all of our events. I just want to thank you again for this rich session, and have a great night.